What's up, Raptors fans? Welcome to the Warriors Report. Soon after their last preseason game, the Raptors announced their final roster. Now, shout out to Josh Lewenberg, who did tweet that the Raptors have waived Josh Jackson, DJ Wilson, and Gabe Brown, meaning the final roster spot goes to Justin Champagnie. Now, I know people are going to have a lot of thoughts for this, as do I. I'm going to be breaking this down for you guys in today's video. So if you're ready to watch this video, guys, make sure to give it a thumbs up. Let's try to get this video to 110 likes. And if you want to hit the subscribe button as well, that would be very, very much appreciated. Also, guys, I normally don't plug this in, but if you are subscribed to this channel, make sure to turn on your notification bell because for whatever reason, my videos have not been getting out as much, even though they're getting a lot of likes. So make sure your notification bell is turned on. And unfortunately, there's no shout out for today's video because I just dropped literally a video less than 12 hours ago where I said if anyone wants a shout out. I have not heard from anyone. So there's no shout out for today's video. And one more thing I'm going to plug in, guys, before we get into today's video is I am doing a Yahoo Fantasy Auction basketball draft this Tuesday at 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 p.m. Eastern time. So if you want to join that, I will be linking that down below in the comment section. So make sure to join that. It's going to be fun. It's going to be free. So you definitely want to check that out. You can join that league as well. So with that being said, let's get into today's video. All right, guys, so let's discuss this because I know people will have a lot of thoughts regarding the final roster spot. Now, I would be the first to admit that someone like a Justin Champagnie definitely has not looked his best. In fact, he's barely played because of injury issues. And a lot of people will question why he got the final roster spot. I will break that down in just a moment, but let's go through some of these names that were waived. Gabe Brown, realistically speaking, he was never going to make the roster, so there's not really much of a discussion there. Despite the fact that he shot the ball really well for the Toronto Raptors, he was realistically always going to the Raptors 905, so the Raptors G League has yet to sign him, but I think he will probably make his way there now. Obviously, there's those other two guys we do have to touch upon, DJ Wilson and Josh Jackson. Now, I know people are going to be really angry because a lot of people feel like Josh Jackson was the player that the Raptors should have gave the final roster to because he was able to score. Well, let's get a few facts straight out of the way first, because before we talk about Josh Jackson's ability to score, let's talk about his 3 previous preseason games in which he has scored a combined, and you hear this right, a combined 4 points total. He has also shot the ball 1 of 14 from the field while hitting 0 threes in those 3 games. And in fact, he's only hit 1 3 this entire preseason in the 5 games he's played. So despite the fact that he has looked very, very impressive the first 2 games, the last 3 games just seemed like he was forcing his shot a lot. It kind of looked like he was trying to go ISO a little bit too many times and looking for his own stats. And that is ultimately why he got cut. Now, realistically speaking, I don't think the Raptors were ever going to cut Justin Champagnie. But when we talk about DJ Wilson as well, it's quite interesting. He averaged about 6 points per game, and he also averaged 4.3 rebounds in 10 minutes played, whereas Josh Jackson averaged about 6.3 points per game in about 13 minutes played. And it's funny because I know Raptors fans will say, why did we not waive someone like Hernan Gomez? Now, Hernan Gomez is a solid shooter. Josh Jackson is not. Now, shout out to Pensari Basketball. Robert did make a really nice video talking about Josh Jackson. When people got really excited about Josh Jackson, we need to take into consideration that he's going to be the 11th, 12th, 13th guy off of the bench if he was ever going to make the roster. And taking into consideration his style of play, which seems like it's dependent on very ISO heavy, he's not really known for his shooting. And I don't even know exactly how that's going to work with Nick Nurse. Now, I say this because Nick Nurse, we know he likes his bench guys to play a certain style of play. With starters, he gives them a little bit more freedom, but there's a reason why Malachi Flynn was benched last year, because he is going too much ISO. And that would be the same case with Josh Jackson. And even taking into consideration that Josh Jackson comes into the game, he's not going to be your number 1 option. He's not going to be your number 2 because Chris Boucher, Precious Achiuwa there, and you can even argue Delano Banton. So although we definitely do need some scoring off of the bench, there's not very many areas that he provides besides scoring. In fact, you could argue that that's all he really does, and he's not really going to be an ISO scorer, or he would have been a good, solid bench piece for the Toronto Raptors. And I say this because when you're a bench player, you don't have the same freedom you do on the offensive side as you would in maybe in preseason or summer league. So obviously, his preseason stats may have looked great for the first 2 games, but realistically speaking, guys, he was never going to get that bench piece. And I say this because the Raptors are invested in Justin Champagnie. Justin Champagnie, when he went undrafted, there was about, I believe, 11 teams, he said, 11 to 15 teams. I forget the exact number. That's how many teams were calling for Justin Champagnie's services to sign for him when he went undrafted, yet he chose the Toronto Raptors, and he spoke so highly of the Toronto Raptors culture, their team, their organization as a whole. And I think it would be a little bit crazy to think for a player who has shown that much loyalty to the Raptors before even signing there, that the Raptors don't return that favor. Now, I know it seems crazy because the NBA is a business, it moves fast, and you ultimately do have to make the best decision. But I firmly believe this was the best decision for the Toronto Raptors, taking into consideration a few things before we make a final decision on whether the Raptors made a mistake with giving Justin Champagnie the final roster spot. He's 21 years old, Justin Champagnie, and Josh Jackson is 25 years old. He's 4 years younger. He has a lot more potential, and that is what the Raptors see. And also, you have to give him an opportunity. He's only played one season with the Raptors. You're not going to waive him. I know they did that with David Johnson. I know I say that, but Justin Champagnie has looked really good with the Raptors when limited games he did play last year. He was a beast on the rebounding aspect. He was also shooting some threes at times. He's still a very young player. Give him some time to develop. Let him develop in our system. I think it would have been a little bit too quick to kind of waive him. Give him at least one more full season before you ultimately decide if he should be waived or not. I think he would be a really nice fit with the Raptors, and I think he's going to continue to grow. It's just been unfortunate with his off-season injuries that he has not really had the opportunity to really display what he's capable of. Now, if I'm being completely honest, just based off of what we've seen in preseason, I think it's hard to argue Justin Champagnie has looked impressive at all. You could argue he's looked terrible. In fact, you could definitely see that the injuries have limited his style of play a little bit. He's not the same player because of those injuries, but there's so much more that goes behind the scenes. As I've always preached on this channel is the Raptors see different things behind the scenes that us fans don't. They see practices, they see who's coming in early, they see who's staying late after practices, who's actually listening to the head coaches. And again, I'm not indicating that Josh Jackson did not, but there's so many factors to take into consideration before we just jump into preseason statistics and just say that he performed like this, he did not, and he should have made the roster. And another thing I want to talk about, it's funny because everyone keeps talking about Josh Jackson's stats and how he would be that scorer that the Raptors need. Yet, in limited minutes, DJ Wilson averaged nearly the same amount of points, 6 points, whereas Josh Jackson averaged 6.3, and Josh Jackson did play 3 more minutes. So I'm surprised that there's certain players that just kind of stick with a lot of fans. We saw that last year with Sam Dekker, where originally we were both all of us were questioning why the Raptors had signed Sam Dekker. And by the end of the preseason, we were questioning why they had waived him because of the one Washington game where he went off. So again, that's the same scenario with Josh Jackson. When he had gotten signed, I made a video and a lot of you guys were questioning why Josh Jackson. This is a very random signing. And yet here we are again. We're doing the same thing over and over again, guys. We fall in love with certain guys. DJ Wilson, you could argue, had a more impressive preseason. He played 3 minutes less, averaged more rebounds, averaged nearly the same amount of points, and he also just does a lot of good things as a role player that the Raptors would look for in a role player. So DJ Wilson would actually make more sense than Josh Jackson. But look, it is what it is. I'm happy with Justin Champagnie. I'm, for one, am not complaining one single bit. I'm completely have full faith in Justin Champagnie. I have full faith in Masai Ujiri and Nick Nurse and some of the decision making that goes on behind the scenes. I think it makes a lot of sense to give him that roster spot. Like I said, he's 21 years old. Ultimately, you do have to admit he has more potential than Josh Jackson. Even though Josh Jackson is still quite young, there's a reason why he's been on many teams already. Maybe it's the attitude, maybe it's the work ethic. Again, I can't say best of luck to Josh Jackson. I hope he gets to play in another NBA team because obviously you don't want, guys like that. You want to give him another opportunity. I feel bad for Josh Jackson, but you know what? I'm sure another team will take him, hopefully. But there's a reason why he's not on an NBA roster and why the Raptors had invited him to a camp. And again, same thing. I'll go back to Sam Dekker here. Sam Dekker is not in the NBA for a reason, yet fans were so upset that we did not bring Sam Dekker onto the roster last year. So again, these are just my thoughts in general, but I do want to hear from you guys. What are your thoughts? And before we end this video off, guys, I want to quickly highlight what the Raptors roster currently looks like. So unless a crazy trade happens where maybe the Raptors trade for a superstar, which I don't see happening in the next few days, this is what the Raptors roster looks like for opening night. And again, shout out to Josh Lewenberg, always providing such quick and nice updates for us Raptors fans on Twitter. So currently as it stands, the point guard position, there's Fred VanVleet, Delano Banton, Malachi Flynn. Shooting guard position, there's Gary Trent, Porter Jr., Jeff Doughton, who's on a two-way. There's Scotty Barnes. There's Thaddeus Young, Justin Champagnie, who did get that last roster spot, and we know Ron Harper Jr. is on a two-way. And then there's OG, Boucher, Hernan Gomez, Siakam Achiuwa, Birch, and Koloko. So again, there's also a desperate need for someone like a Justin Champagnie because it's a positional league. Now, I know you could argue the same thing with Josh Jackson because technically he can play the shooting guard and small forward position as well. But again, Justin Champagnie knows the Raptor system well. It just makes too much sense not to have him. And I know I've been hearing a little bit of chatter about the Raptors should have waived Ron Harper Jr. It's way too premature, guys. Way too premature to not even let him give him 1 year with the Raptor system. I think Ron Harper Jr. isn't the greatest defensive player. He's looked a little bit slow at times, but he's definitely a player that can score in multiple ways. He can hit three-pointers. He can shoot jump shots. He can do backups and hit with some of those Kobe fadeaways. Obviously not to that level, but again, have some patience with some young players. You do need to give him some time to develop. Ron Harper Jr. will be fine, but as will Justin Champagnie. But again, I do want to hear your thoughts. What are your thoughts on this? Make sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section below. And as always, guys, I do have a trivia question for you today. And the trivia question is, which of these current NBA head coaches has not played in the NBA as a player? Is it A, Nate McMillan? Is it B, Billy Donovan? Is it C, Darvin Ham? Or is it D, Steven Silas? So whoever answers this trivia question correctly first in the comment section gets a shout out in my next video. So again, guys, if you're not sure how the auction Yahoo draft works, it's going on Tuesday. It's free, 5 p.m. Pacific, 8 Eastern. You can always just ask me below. It's free. And I wanted to do this fun thing for you guys. I wanted to do it last year. And as I mentioned in my last video, Raptors, I just shout out to them. They did it last year around the time I was going to do it as well. I didn't want to copy them, but I definitely want to do it. It's been something I've been doing for years. It's a lot of fun. So definitely join. And there's going to be limited spots. So depending on how many people actually want to join, I can increase the number of people in that league as well. So if you want to join, I will be linking that in the comment section below. So that will be it for today's video, guys. So thank you so much for watching this video. And I hope you guys have yourselves a great day.